Today, the Pentagon confirmed that about 140 U.S. service members have been wounded in the Iran war. 8 of them are still seriously hurt. That is on top of the 7 service members who have been killed in action. Today, Pentagon officials said they are ramping up strikes and moving further into Iran.
We continue to start working on and going deeper into Iran's military and industrial base in order to prevent the regime from being able to attack Americans, our interests, and our partners for years to come and project power outside their borders. This means servicing production facilities, research and development sites, and infrastructure.
Today will be yet again our most intense day of strikes inside Iran. The most fighters, the most bombers, the most strikes.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth also talked about what this war is not. And when you listen to this, remember that the president said he should be involved in picking Iran's next leader and that America would, quote, work tirelessly to bring Iran back from the brink of destruction, making it economically bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Watch this.
This is not 2003. This is not endless nation building under those types of quagmires we saw under Bush or Obama. It's not even close. I've heard from a lot of people who I went through 20 years of those wars myself, worried about getting dragged in, worried about mission creep, worried about nation building or democracy expansion. That's never the perspective the president has pursued on this.
Meanwhile, leaders of the two countries are trading serious threats. Trump said he does not believe Iran's new supreme leader can live in peace. And a top Iranian security official responded to the president saying the following: beware, lest you be the one who disappears. There's also big developments on the Strait of Hormuz. Please pay attention to this, a crucial checkpoint in the global economy. CNN is now reporting Iran is laying mines there. This is according to 2 people familiar with the matter. The president responded that if there are any mines, he wants them removed immediately. And if they are not, Iran will face military consequences, quote, at a level never seen before. The status of that strait has consequences for the entire world when it comes to energy and shipping. That is part of the reason that some of Trump's advisors are pushing him to find an exit ramp to end this war as quickly as possible. That is according to the Wall Street Journal. And there are new concerns about America's supply of munitions. The Washington Post now reporting that the Pentagon burned about $5.6 billion worth in just the first 2 days of its attack on Iran. Democratic Senator Mark Warner told MS Now that he believes the U.S. spent as much as $7 billion in the first few days alone. All right, we've got a lot to cover, so let's get smarter with the help of our lead-up panel tonight. Alex Ward is here, national security reporter for the Wall Street Journal. Daniela Diaz, congressional reporter for Notice, joining us from Doral, Florida, covering House Republicans there. And Dave Weigel is back, political reporter for Semafor. Okay, Alex, you were one of the reporters on that very story about Trump's advisors who are pushing him to find an exit ramp. What is the biggest warning sign for them? And is the president listening? Because I'm going to tell you, when I read it and I read exit ramp, it gave me flashbacks of all the Trump advisors behind the scenes during all of the tariff wars of, we're going to find an exit ramp. We're going to help them find an elegant way out of this. And there was no elegant way out of this. It ended up at the Supreme Court, and Trump is still in the trade war.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not a surprise that the things that are really constraining Trump here are the markets, and mainly the price of gas. And so as the price of gas rose, there was a lot of concern within the Trump administration about, what to do about it. So then you've seen the White House and other senior officials come out and basically say, oh, this thing will not last long. This may be over very soon. And what happened? The gas prices went down. So that is one thing that the Trump team cares quite deeply about. The other thing is that there are some polls out there showing that the war is quite unpopular. There are a lot of Americans against it. Republicans are not as strongly for it as they usually are for most things that Trump is for. The MAGA base is still fairly with Trump, but not as strongly as they would be on other issues. So there's just this political headwind that they're worried about, the gas prices and the fact that it's unpopular. With, of course, midterms approaching, that's leading Trump's team to basically tell him, hey, let's see if there's a way you can wrap this up neatly.
Daniela, the president can say something cute about the war ending and markets will pop. he will not get the same results when it comes to gas prices. And gas prices impact a whole lot more Americans than they do just plain investors. There are Republicans in Congress at this point that are clearly supporting the president on Iran. Have you gotten a sense of whether that support is going to last?
Stephanie, I'm here in Doral, Florida, where Republicans are having their yearly retreat, and Donald Trump was here yesterday. I was part of the press corps, the press conference where he addressed for the first time what was happening in Iran, and he defended his actions, including the rising gas prices, saying, look, we're trying to get this under control, but the timelines were contradicting. Stephanie, I mean, he was not able to lay out a clear plan, even while he was addressing House Republicans and talking about Iran, as well as answering questions with the press afterward. It's clear that he's saying, we're trying to wrap this up as quickly as possible, but then saying, we've just begun. So whether or not this is going to wrap anytime soon is unclear, but it's not very popular with Republicans privately. I mean, they would rather here at their retreat focus on affordability, focus on trying to pass another budget bill to lower tax cuts, to reform healthcare. They think that's what Americans need to be focused on right now, that they think that will help them in the midterms. To Alex's point, a war in Iran is not going to help them in the midterms. It's not very popular. It's potentially going to be incredibly expensive. And that is not something that Republicans want to focus on right now leading into this year.
It's not potentially expensive. It's definitely expensive. Dave, take us to the country. You're out there covering primary season. What are voters telling you?
They're not in favor of the war. The polling, I think, holds up based on my anecdotal evidence, talking to people in Texas and South Carolina. I'm heading to Illinois later this week. One, Democrats are very comfortable, no matter what kind of district they're in, opposing the war. I've talked to Democrats in places that Trump won by double digits. They're happy to say they're against it. They're a little bit more tongue-tied on whether, if they got to Congress it was still happening, they'd vote against funding. Remember, a lot of Democrats crashed on those shoals during the Iraq War. But there's none of the sense that you saw with prior wars, especially at the beginning, that they're taking a risk by opposing this. The lesson, and a lot of them learned it from Donald Trump, is that there's just very little risk. If you oppose a war and it goes well, you don't need to apologize. You might need to apologize in the campaign later, but it's not held against you. If you're against the war and it goes poorly, you can use that clip forever. And Trump in his campaigns dined out on the fact that he had been critical of the Iraq war after it started, but fairly early on. People were listening. Republicans were listening. Democrats were listening. I've not been to Kentucky yet, but you can see in Tom Massey's race for re-election, he's very comfortable challenging the president on this war. And he's not finding, those of us who remember the Iraq war buildup and the aftermath and conservative media rallying to it, you are seeing some conservative media outlets be a lot more hawkish than the voters I talked to, the base I talked to. Even when people want to win, they did not vote for Trump to overthrow the Ayatollah. They believed him when he said he wouldn't need to do it because it'd make deals. And there is a sense of disappointment and a great sense of confidence that people don't need to be for it.
I want to talk about the Strait of Hormuz, because this is a situation people aren't thinking about, but it impacts all of us. Alex, if Iran is laying mines, it seems like they very well know it is a serious pressure point for President Trump. Where is this thing headed?
Yeah, I should know that the Journal just confirmed the story as well. We just put up on the site that are fewer than 10 mines that the Iranians have put down there in recent days. That's unclear if they're going to do more. But it could be a political signal to the president, or to basically say, hey, we, Iran, have leverage over this vital choke point. But for right now, we know that there are fewer than 10 that they've laid down in recent days that the U.S. is aware of. In terms of what it could mean, I mean, let's just go through the fact that it is a vital waterway between right off the coast of Iran. It is a very small choke point. About a fifth of the world's crude oil goes through there. Global trade, I think about 10%, I believe, is the number of global trade or global economy will go through there. I mean, everything will go up in terms of price. It's just a incredibly important, vital place. And we've seen in the past the Iranians weaponize the Strait of Hormuz and nearby waters in the 1980s, the so-called, the known as tanker wars, where they did this, they mined this, and the U.S. Navy got involved in order to demine it. Trump has said that he might be sending the U.S. Navy to escort tankers through, and now it seems they're seemingly on a mission to destroy the mining boats that the Iranians have, or some of which are inactive, some of which are docked, others which may be active in the waters we don't know. So this is a major thing. This is basically what every analyst has warned about when an American leader thinks about going to war with Iran, they've said, look, Iran can not maybe fully shut it down, but can definitely make it a difficult place to navigate, which of course is why companies don't want to send their tankers through there. So that sends insurance premiums up, that increases the length of time it takes for things to move in waterways, and that just increases prices for everybody.
Dave, Trump tried to pin high gas prices on President Biden during his administration. It worked. Won't the same thing happen to him if gas prices stay where they are?
In the short term, it absolutely has. And I've seen candidates around the country exploit that. And again, feel no fear that they're going to be called unpatriotic if they say it's not worth paying more for gas, whatever the objective in Iran is. It's just not clear to most people. And polling just finds it's about 55, 50, 60% of the country. Not clear what the end goal is in Iran. Lindsey Graham can explain it. There is a cohort in the country that say we replace this regime, it becomes a secular regime. We've wiped out all of our problems in the Middle East in perpetuity, and will benefit in the long run for lower energy prices. That's the argument. I do not see a lot of patience from Americans on this. And in the past, Donald Trump has benefited from a lack of patience Americans have in being told that some foreign policy situation is going to be resolved in due time. Trump was promising the end of all conflicts when he ran for president, but also the end of real short-term pain for anything. The low prices that were going to come down at some point, unclear how. Gas was part of that. And again, everything I heard this week is candidates in places where Republicans were posting pictures of themselves next to gas prices 2 weeks ago and have taken them down, or have had to explain why they're not bragging about them anymore. Midterm is a ways away, but you've seen elections already in the last month. Democrats are doing quite well, and voters are blaming Republicans, even if they don't love Democrats, for the fact that the prices are up now.
Daniela, this war, I mentioned it before, is costing billions. Mark Warner said he thinks in the first few days alone, it cost us $7 billion. When do you think we'll see action on a funding bill? And how do you see that debate playing out?
Well, the big debate has started, Stephanie. Even here in Doral, Speaker Mike Johnson was asked about this during one of his many meetings that he had with the press during his retreat. And he said that a supplemental funding bill, essentially a bill that would continue to fund what's happening in Iran, the federal government appropriating money, is inevitable. It does seem that Republicans are going to help President Donald Trump with finding some sort of funding to continue what's happening in Iran. The number that I'm seeing or heard that's been floated is about $50 billion. That's a lot of money. And that's going to be really difficult for Congress to square, considering that we're currently in more than 30 days of a Department of Homeland Security shutdown, and that has not been fixed either. So the fact that this is going to be the next issue on Capitol Hill, as we know, Stephanie, I've talked about this with you so many times, having Congress try to find appropriations and pass appropriations, even if they're essential, is incredibly hard. They always have an uphill climb when it comes to these issues. And this is just going to be another thing that they have to tack on to their to-do list that they're already going to have a lot of difficulty to push through.